Most leaders know the conversation they need to have. They know who they need to talk to. They know what behavior needs to be addressed. They know the issue has gone on too long. But they keep waiting. They tell themselves, I'll handle it next week. Maybe it'll get better. I don't want to make things worse. They already know what I expect.
He's not just a coach, he's a leader of leaders. With over 50 years of real-world experience, he's helped business owners double their profits, build leaders from within, and reclaim their time.
A mentor, an author, and a chief reinvention officer who's guided thousands to lead with clarity, confidence, and impact. Please welcome Henry Chidgey.
But here's the truth. Avoided conversations do not disappear. They become culture. That's one of the responsibilities of leadership. Not just making decisions, not just setting direction, not just getting the work done. Leadership means having the conversations that protect the standard, protect the team, and protect the future of the organization. If you lead people, difficult conversations are not optional. They are part of the responsibility. And the longer you avoid them, the more expensive they become. What do they cost? They cost trust. They cost clarity. They cost morale. They cost time. They cost respect. And eventually, they cost good people. Because your best people are always watching what you tolerate. They may not say much. They may not complain, but they notice. And they notice when poor performance gets ignored. They notice when disrespectful behavior is allowed. They notice when one person is held accountable and another person is not. They notice when the leader sees the problem and chooses silence. And when that happens, the message becomes crystal clear. Not because you said it, because you allowed it. That is why avoiding the conversation is never, ever neutral. It teaches a team what is acceptable. Now, if you're a business owner, supervisor, or leader responsible for people doing real work, I put together a free guide called Get Calm, Clear Leadership in 14 Days Without Overthinking Every Hard Conversation. And you can get it at the link below. That's go.henrychidgey.com. It's designed to help you slow the moment down, communicate clearly, and lead difficult conversations without making them bigger than they need to be. Because most leaders do not avoid hard conversations because they do not care. They avoid them because they're not sure how to start. So let's make this practical. The first responsibility is to get clear about the behavior, not the personality, not the story, not the frustration, the behavior, just the behavior. What specifically happened? When did it happen? What standard did it violate? What impact did it have on the team, the customer, the work, or the business? You cannot lead a clear conversation from vague frustration. Your attitude is bad? That's vague. You interrupted two teammates in yesterday's meeting and dismissed their concerns before they finished speaking. Now that's clear. You don't care is vague. The job was due Friday, you did not communicate the delay, and the customer called us before we knew there was a problem. That's clear. Specific behavior creates a leadership conversation. Vague frustration creates an argument. The second responsibility is to connect the behavior to the standard. The leader is not there to vent. The leader is there to protect the standard. That means you have to say, here's what happened, here's why it matters, here's the standard we are committed to, here's what needs to change. That is not being harsh. That is being clear. Clarity is one of the most respectful things a leader can offer. The third responsibility is to have the conversation before resentment builds. Too many leaders wait until they're angry. By then, they're not leading the conversation. Their frustration is leading. This is where tone gets sharp, words get sloppy, the conversation becomes bigger than the issue. A hard conversation handled early can be calm. A hard conversation delayed too long often becomes emotional. The issue may have started small, but avoidance gives it time to grow. That is why steady leaders don't wait for a problem to become unbearable before they address it. They deal with it while it is still manageable. Now, if this is something you're facing in your own business or leadership role, and you won't help thinking through the conversation before you have it, that is exactly the kind of work I do in leadership mentoring. You can book a leadership mentoring session at henrychidgey.com. Sometimes one clear conversation can change the direction of a team, but the leader has to be willing to have it. The fourth responsibility is to leave the conversation with clear expectations. Do not end it with, try to do better, let's improve going forward, just be more mindful. That may sound nice, but it is not clear enough to lead with, end with. It may sound nice, but it's not clear enough to lead with. Instead, end with things like this. Here is what I expect. Or, here is what needs to happen by when. Or, here is how we will follow up. Or, here's what happens if the behavior continues. That's not punishment. That is accountability. And accountability handled with respect and consistency. Two key words. With respect and consistency creates trust. People do not trust leaders who avoid issues. They trust leaders who deal with issues fairly and equitably. The fifth responsibility is to follow through. This is where leadership either becomes real or disappears. If you have the conversation but never follow up, you've trained people that your words do not carry weight. If you set an expectation but do not inspect it, you have made the standard optional. And a standard that's optional is not a standard. If you say there will be consequences but never act, you weaken your own leadership. Follow through is where integrity shows up. You do what you say you would do, calmly, consistently, without drama. That is how trust is built. That is how standards hold. That is how teams become healthier. Here's the one thing I want you to remember. The conversation you are avoiding is already communicating. Your silence is saying something. Your delay is saying something. Your tolerance is saying something. So the question is not whether your team is receiving a message. They are. I assure you they are. The question is whether it is a message you intend to send. Leadership is not just about what you say. It is what you allow. It is what you correct. It is what you reinforce. It is what you follow through on. And when you avoid the conversation, you're not protecting the relationship. You're usually protecting your own discomfort. That may be understandable, but that's not leadership. The responsibility of leadership is to care enough about the person, the team, and the standard to speak clearly when clarity is needed. Not cruelly, never cruelly. Not emotionally, never emotionally. Not carelessly, never carelessly. But speak clearly, respectfully, consistently, because every conversation you avoid becomes part of the culture you're creating. That is the responsibility of leadership. See you in the next one. Take care for now.